And we are live. Thank you for stopping by the Indie Dave Comics channel. I, of course, am your host, Indie Dave, the writer of the second most anticipated Frog Mutant comic on Indiegogo, Oddity, Madness in the Marsh. Today we've got with us the artist for Madness in the Marsh, Sweens07.
Hello.
And we've got Ryan Haack, who's got a new book out.
Hello. Thank you again. Thank you.
And everybody, I think, knows Doc Hogg. You should know him from Twitter.
I sure hope so, but if they don't, hello. Nice to make your acquaintance, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
All right, we will be discussing. They've got a couple of new cool books out. But what we're going to start off talking about DC Comics this week, who kind of went down in a lot of people's view, and then in the next minute kind of went right back up. So we're going to start. They posted a video of a trailer for, I guess, a new series or a new graphic novel or something called Gotham High. And I'm not sure who the audience for this is, but we're going to go ahead. We're going to play. It's about 46 seconds, the trailer for this thing. So let's go ahead and start.
Welcome to Gotham High, where everyone worships the rich and the beautiful, and no one is richer or more handsome than Bruce Wayne. He doesn't have friends, he has followers. My friend Johnny Napier has nothing to his name, except good looks and a wicked sense of humor. The problem is that I love them both. I'm Selina Kyle, that girl next door. And in my opinion, a triangle is a perfect shape.
Oh, wow.
That is freaking awesome, right? Which one of you?
Like a case of scabies is freaking awesome. I mean, no. God.
Of the three of you, which one do you think is the target audience?
Definitely
Teenager.
I would say none of you. That would be my guess.
It reminds me of I was actually watching a interview Kevin Smith had with Paul Dini, which, Paul Dini is like probably one of the best Batman writers ever. And they were talking about something that was basically this comic book that's being presented. So I don't know. I think that it has some potential, but it's not. But the whole element of social media, and then I just think it's not really hitting the mark of what a Bruce Wayne origin story or a Gotham High series could actually be. So that's kind of disappointing.
Well, your target audience of the WB and Gossip Girl. I mean, do you really think that audience has spent much time with comic books? I mean, so if you're trying to target them with a comic book, I mean, do they see this and say, oh, comic book version of Gossip Girl or One Tree Hill or whatever I'm totally out of touch with that. So if I say something embarrassing here, I'll just suck it up, but which is likely to happen. They're not, to them, I don't think comic books are cool. I mean, the people who are probably watching that show think that all of us comic book people are nerds. They're not wrong, but they don't want to be one of us, which is fine. But I just, these things need to be market tested a little better. I think, put a little more money into market research, and that way you don't embarrass yourself, But
now they have novels, like you can get a Batman novel that's not a comic book that I guess would appeal to a comic book audience because, but this sort of thing, I think it's a YA. It's obviously young adult. I mean, it's for teenage girls. Teenage girls read YA novels. Yeah, they don't read comic books. If they made this into a YA novel, to me, that would be the market for something like this. Unless they're straight up saying, okay, the WB is pulling IPs to work for shows, and for whatever reason, they have this idea in their head that, we have to put it in the comic book first so that the WB will make a show out of it.
But can you see the WB making a show out of this? I mean,
I can.
I can too. Yeah, I actually can.
Yeah.
All right.
Because have you seen the superhero shows that they have on the WB? Like
Okay.
the Flash
Fair enough.
and Supergirl. Oh my God.
Well, Flash wasn't the first couple of seasons of Flash were not bad. I thought they did a pretty good job with those. But yeah, I mean, some of the other stuff is utter crap.
Yeah, I have a teenage daughter. She's 14, and she loves the Flash. She loves all those WB shows. So I mean, that's she is the target audience for this. But she, like I said, she does also read YA novels. She doesn't read comic books, or very few comic books.
Yeah,
I think we've got her interested in one. But to me, that's who the target audience is. I don't see why they're wasting time making it into a comic book.
It just seems more and more like comic books. You know, they're trying to go after audiences they're not, likely to be reading comics in their 30s, 40s, and 50s when people have, and 60s, 70s. Mike Barron, sorry, Mike. Well, Mike's still creating comics for crying out loud. Why are they not trying to figure out who those people are in their teens and 20s and even preteens that are likely to be reading comic books? Well, they're trying to, I don't know. The other thing that this seems like is that they're trying too hard to be, with the cool in crowds, I wish I was one of the cool kids, if you're into comic books, there's comic cool and then there's cool, and the two don't mix very well most of the time.
You can get young adult soap operas on almost any channel, right now, and without reading a comic book. You read comic books because they have, I don't know, aliens, superheroes, whatever it is that's kind of over budget for TV a lot of the times, or for movies even. And maybe they would take that IP and put it in a movie, or like they do it with the TV show. But I can't see this kind of thing getting any ground as a comic book.
Yeah, comic books don't have to worry about having a CGI budget. They can pretty much do whatever the artist is capable of. And I mean, even if you were able to make this, I don't know, it doesn't even look to me like you would have to worry. Now, I'll say that. I mean, you may not, if you were to turn this into a series, you might not even have to worry about much CGI, because I don't see any. I mean, this looks like all Napier becoming the Joker, Bruce becoming the Batman. So maybe there is none of that. But again, it's just the target audience is not one that's really much into comics, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't see it. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, there's young girls that like, or teenage girls that like comics and stuff. But I mean, in reality, how big of a market is that?
Yeah, that's true.
There are 4 or 5 women who work at the comic book shop that I frequent, and that's more women than that I have met who like comic books in my lifetime. Walking into that one store, I met more women who liked comic books than I had ever met in my lifetime prior to that. I mean, I'm serious. It's just, I certainly wish there were more women involved in comics, but
you guys think, like, what, why do those girls like comics? Do they like them because of, this type of romance thing, or do they like it because they like superheroes and silly stuff like that? Like, there are girls that like that stuff, and they probably came into comics because they like that stuff, not because they wanted to find romance novels or anything like that. That's just another take on it.
Not in comics, they don't. They may certainly read romance novels, but they have this side interest in comics as well, and it's you're not
they're into. But I don't know. I can't see this being successful, but
this is something I could see on like the Disney Channel. You could just take out the fact that it's Batman related. Just have the same 3 characters, change their names, and you could put it on the Disney Channel, and you've got one of their live action like Disney Channel movies.
Yeah,
like that's all you would have to do. Yeah, Rare in the chat says there are quite a few girls that work at the comic book shop there. They used to push this thing, or they tried to push this thing. Oh, the comic readers are 50-50 men and women. And I was like, that's not my experience at all.
No, I mean,
I think maybe I think at
anyway.
the highest that I've ever seen, it's like 10%. It's like 90-10.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, I don't know. I don't even go to comic book shops that often anymore. I mean, when I do, there's maybe one girl working there or something that knows what's going on, but
and that's and that kind of disparity is really the norm in most hobbies, most industries. I mean, you're rarely going to get a 50-50 mix of men. I mean, elementary educations, the people who work in that, 80% women. That's just normal. The way human beings seem to sort themselves.
They just gravitate towards different things, and that's okay. Like, it's completely fine. There's no reason to force it upon anyone, to change things. So I don't know. I don't know anyone personally that would go for a book like that. But
like I said, I could see it if it was a YA novel. If they did it like that, because that would appeal to teenage girls. Because, like I said, my daughter does read books. She's not big into comics. Like 1 or 2 comics I think she likes.
Yeah.
But she reads books, and that's the kind of thing I guess that might interest her.
Yeah. Like
as a comic book, visually it seems to me it would be kind of boring. I don't know how much action they're going to put in. I don't know if they're going to put fight scenes or anything like that in. I just don't know. But just the premise isn't something that like would appeal to somebody that's looking for a superhero comic. You're gonna fill it with superheroes. You're gonna put Catwoman and Batman in it. That's not the premise for an action crime fighting, book.
Yeah, you end up having a book with a bunch of talking head sequences, and where's the fun in that? Like,
who's Bruce Wayne gonna beat up?
Yeah.
In high school, if he beats up people, he's a bully.
Yeah, it was my impression that Bruce Wayne didn't even go to Gotham High. I mean, I feel like
why would he?
Yeah, it seems like the lost
some
years
private
of
school
Bruce
somewhere.
Wayne. Yeah, exactly. The lost years of Bruce Wayne are just so up in the air. It's like, where was he? I feel like there should be a good story there.
You're more expecting to be at boarding school in Switzerland than
right.
public high, public high in the US.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool idea, but at the same time, it's like I would much rather see that Bruce Wayne that we hardly ever get to see. Only when it's like relevant to the plot, or he knew somebody like Tommy Elliott or something like that.
Especially at that point. So at this point, his parents are already dead. So he should be training.
Yeah, exactly.
He shouldn't be playing basketball. He should be at private schools, especially if he's got this whole revenge kick in his mind. He should be at all kinds of private schools, and then on the side, learning, MMA or whatever. He's going to be using MMA and learning to jump around on buildings and stuff. That should be what he should be teaching himself on the side in private.
And Napier should be in reform school or juvenile hall. I mean, seriously, he's not gonna, we know what his backstory is. I mean, that he's, just been this unstable psychopath from day one, but also, a criminal genius. He's not. I mean, he's either out on the streets or he's, like I said, in some kind of juvenile hall. I mean, he's not going to be in a regular high school. If we're going by the logic of the characters here.
And if you go, like, the first mention to Jack Napier was the Batman movie, right?
Yeah.
So he was just a low level thug is what he was. He wasn't even like all crazy genius. He was just, regular, low level thug that got, whatever, the acid or whatever.
Well,
and that made him
I remember in that movie, Bruce, I think it was Bruce Wayne that was, he was looking over who Napier was, and he said he had showed considerable talent. I want to say it was like math and science and art. So there was, some very high level intelligence there as well. Although I think that the Joker's more interesting when it's high level intelligence in terms of being able to psychologically manipulate people.
Yes.
That's what made the Dark Knight so good, is that Heath Ledger played it as someone who just knows exactly which psychological buttons on you to push, and does it so well.
Yeah, Ben L says it would be it's really boring sounding. There's plenty of pop high school dramas. Why are we taking existing characters and throwing them into the situation? Well, apparently there aren't enough, because now we have to make Batman.
Yeah, well,
are they going to do? And they already did Smallville, so basically that's what this is. It's Smallville with Batman.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways you can take the Archie comics and transform them.
Right.
Exactly.
That works, but it's just we take the typical Archie story and give it a dark twist. Okay, well, they were already in high school, so you expect them to be in high school,
Yeah. All right. So that was kind of the down on DC this week. Now there's some positive DC news. They just released a press release today. I don't know if it was a press release or it was just something they sent to the stores, to the retailers. And we're going to go ahead and pull that up. Let me see here. We'll find that one. And here we go. All right. So, not that. All right. Let's see. So, DC sent this notice to retailers, I guess. First, the entire team here at DC hopes that you, your family, and your employees are staying safe and healthy during this very tough and precarious time. We know that you've been waiting for DC to comment on the state of affairs and to address any measures we will take to help our community lighten the burden of the disruption of our business, and we've been working hard on a long-term solution-focused plan. And here's how we're going to help. I know people have been waiting for Jim Lee. I don't know if Jim Lee wrote this, but I know people have been waiting for Jim Lee to say something. They said he's been kind of eerily quiet on this whole thing. So let's see. Here's how they're going to help. Periodicals and books with in-store dates between March 18th, 2020 and June 24th, 2020 will be fully returnable. We'll even provide credit for your separate return shipping of these items only. Additionally, because we anticipate that continued disruption of business operations will create regional volatility, DC is exploring a multi-distributor model to provide us with the flexibility needed during this crisis to get new content to the readers on an ongoing basis. In the short term, we continue to engage in active conversations with Diamond to help us solve the distribution issues that have arisen and hope to get new products to stores that want or need it as soon as possible. We'll provide additional information about how we'll make that happen in the coming days. Thanks for your patience with us. DC will continue to monitor the situation, continue to speak with you directly, and continue to support you through the days ahead. You are the lifeblood of this industry. All the best, the DC team. All right, so it looks like they're doing something good for the retailers. It seems they have at least identified the fact that only having one distributor is bad. And I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand why it took them this long. But because when you look at it, especially if you look at it as a sideways like hourglass, you have on one side you'll have Marvel, DC, Valiant, all the names on one side of the hourglass, and I'll go into the middle, and then on the other side you have all the retailers, and you start picking off retailers one by one, it doesn't really affect the other side so much, and then you start picking off the publishers one by one. As long as you still have the big ones, you can still fill some of the stores. Maybe some of those will start going down. Once you take out that middle, I mean, you break the chain. There's nothing. And they should have. I don't understand how nobody saw this coming, even without the beer virus, even without somebody should have said ahead of time, hey, look, what happens if something terrible happens at the factory or the warehouse? The warehouse burns down. for who Diamond, or just something terrible other than the virus. Anything could have happened, and now the whole system is shut down. So they should have been doing this multiple distributor thing from the beginning.
Well, I mean, does it look like there's a lot of foresight in the comic book industry right now?
No.
I mean, that's the type of thing that, I'm sure people in the industry bring it up to each other now and then, but, if no one does anything on it, it's, because they're probably, myopic. And I mean, we certainly see that in the quality of the comics. So why would that mindset not be brought to their distribution system?
I think,
but I mean, you're absolutely right. They should have had more than one distributor, for the last 2 decades. But I mean, I'm entirely with you on that, certainly.
And I think Marvel even had a exclusive deal. Aren't they only supposed to go through Diamond? I think that's one of the things they signed in the 90s, right?
I wouldn't know.
I think it was exclusive. And if they shut down, what do you do if you've got that contract? Can you say, "Oh, Diamond, you broke the contract. Now we got to scramble"?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I am glad that DC is doing this. I mean, it's kind of like the comic book industry now doesn't have a lot of choice, but well, I mean, I think I was saying this before the show. I mean, there's always the choice to fail, I guess. But if you assuming you do want to survive, at least one of these, comic book companies is going to have to do something like DC did, and then for the other comic book companies to follow, if this works for DC, if they start getting a little more market share, then the other, companies are going to have to start doing similar things to keep pace. As for, I don't know, let's assume for a second that Marvel does have, an exclusive contract with Diamond. Well, if they can't compete by only having that one distributor, Disney comes in or somebody comes in with some money to Diamond and say, hey, we got to rewrite this contract. Here's a big check for you. So, they solve it that way. It would be nice. I mean, it's unfortunate it's taken something like this to cause this kind of change in the comic book industry. I mean, you'd think the popularity of Zach's videos, of Ethan's videos, of all these of the burgeoning indie and especially the Comicscape market would have these people start to think about it. But again, we were just talking about foresight and myopia, and so I guess it's only when they're absolutely forced, when the bread is finally absolutely being pulled off their table, that they react, and it's unfortunate. But
the only thing I've heard from Marvel is they're going to be offering discounts, and then possibly I've heard rumors, I don't know how true it is, that they're going to try to push the digital stuff. Which I just don't think that's going to work. I don't think people are going to be like, oh yeah, I'll just go digital.
Well, it's like, what did Stanley say about comics? Yeah. Like boobs. Great to look at it on a screen, but you want to hold them in your hand.
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost like they don't know how to business. Like, I don't see how anybody could have not seen this coming, how they thought this was good. I mean, I can understand how they thought it was a good idea.
Well,
because at first, I'm sure they were like, you know what? This is going to be so much easier. We'll just have one guy take care of it, essentially. This one company said, hey, we can do it. And it just seemed easier to them at the time. And at the time, I'll bet you I think it was the 80s, maybe early 90s, when they signed that exclusive contract. And comics were, selling in the millions. Yeah, the X-Men was selling, 1 million copies or whatever. And they thought, hey, this is going to last forever.
Well, they made, and I think what kind of continued it was just the boom in comic book movies that we've seen the last 10 to 15 years. They're making money. I mean, MCU was making money every time they blew their nose. And, I think the comic book industry got to piggyback on that. The DC, DC movies didn't do great, but, they had definitely had some ones that raked in the money. So why would you not, with that kind of boom going, yeah, I mean, you just, I can see there was clearly an atmosphere there where myopia was, just could flourish, so to speak. And, I don't think without the boom time of the 90s and then the big push of the movies in the last 15 years, you would have seen the development of the SJWs in comic books. But, that's kind of what happens when in a lot of institutions, things do very well, and then these ideologues slowly begin to creep their way in, and before you know it, they're at the top saying, "Oh, people who agree with me, you're in. We don't care about how good you can tell the story or how good your art is. People who don't agree with me, you're out." And of course, that's the beginning of the industry starting to taking a nosedive and losing respect and losing customers. But given the way the comic book industry has been the last 30 years, it's the kind of success that breeds complacency and probably breeds short-sightedness.
And it doesn't hurt, or I mean, it does hurt technically, but as far as the complacency, it doesn't help that Disney comes along and is like, yeah, we're buying you up and we're gonna make movies and stuff. And so, as far as Marvel's concerned, they're like, hey, Disney's paying our checks now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's a lot they probably had in their head, and there's a lot even less we have to do now.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can make any kind of shitty book we want, and it doesn't matter because Disney's paying the bill.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like it's like an insurance policy.
It's the big dream. Get yourself bought out by the mega corporation and, go retire to Florida with your new friends,
Yep. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how bad the books are. And it doesn't matter what people say about the customers. And I'm not even one that, I mean, yeah, I don't think that the majority of people who are doing comics are SJWs. I think there's a small amount and they're loud.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm not one to, put everybody all in the same basket. But the ones who are loud are really dragging everybody else down.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is the people that are higher up aren't telling them to shut up.
Yeah.
Hey, look. And we see it. Was it Richard Pace? Who was the one that was talking about like, oh, my customer's the publisher. It's not the buyer. Well, ultimately, it is the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with these people. There's too many layers between the end user and the creator.
Well,
they're not even really creators. They're just, the guys drawing the pictures.
Well, I mean, there's certainly that, you see that entitlement attitude through a number of the creators. I think it was Mark Waid who was talking about blocking people on Twitter and doing a block change and saying, yeah, it was unfortunate that when you do a blockchain, that some of the people who are quote unquote good fans and people that like you suffer from that and get blocked from being able to interact with the creator. But getting to interact with us, and he said this was a privilege. And there's no right to a privilege. It's like, well, no, in fact, the privilege goes the other way. It's a privilege for you that someone thought enough of your work to actually part with their dollars and give it to you. That's where the privilege is. But there is absolutely, and Mark Waid is one of the loudest voices out there. So, and I'll just say this really quickly. It's kind of, to me, like Mark Waid's career is kind of and his attitude seemed to be a little bit of a microcosm of the comic book industry. I mean, you go back to the stuff he was doing in the 90s, and it was good comics. He was writing good comics. And, of course, we didn't have social media really back then. So, maybe that it was just the lack of social media that kept him from being such a jerk. But,
well, from what I understand, he was a jerk. It's just it wasn't as public as it could be now.
Yeah, well,
unless you were in that inner circle, I mean, it's not like Wizard was publishing those kind of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Wizard was propping everybody up at the time, and that's where you got all your information if you were just a regular reader, at least in the 90s when that became popular and they were all rock stars. But you've seen I saw on Twitter He went and did a convention, Mark Waid, recently, within the last year, the last 6 months or whatever. And he's sitting at the table on his phone. There's no pictures anywhere. There's no banners, nothing. He's representing the Lion Forge or whatever company that he's working for now. He's like the creative editor, director, or whatever. He was there representing the company. There was no banner. He was just sitting at this table playing on his phone. Nobody was there to see him. There was no line. It's like nobody would know that he was there presenting. They would just think he was some fat guy that was resting at the table, in between walking around. I mean, he's not that popular. At least he's not so popular that the everyday convention goer would pay attention to him unless he had some, had stuff up telling him who he was. And that's the problem. You saw the same thing with Mags Visaggio when she went to a convention. She had her books on her table and nobody came to see her.
Well, no, I mean, the customers still do reward good work. Joshua Williamson was at my comic book store about a year ago, and the line was almost out the door. And this is not a little tiny shop. I mean, it's a big, you're talking probably at least 1,000 square feet. I mean, it's wall-to-wall comics, and the line was pretty much out the door. And then it's happened other times too. They had the guy in there who created the Batman Who Laughs, whose name is escaping me right now. But I mean, the line again was almost out the door. And you had people who were such huge fans of it. I saw this guy come in actually dressed up as the Batman Who Laughs. I'm sorry I didn't actually get a picture because he had really put a lot of work into his costume. But I mean, the people who do good work, the customers will reward them. They will become fans. But Joshua Williamson doesn't go out of his way to piss off fans. Presumably the guy who came up with the Batman Who Laughs. I'm sorry, I cannot remember his name. I should be able to do that, but presumably he does. He is the same. So,
Scott Snyder.
Thank you, Scott Schneider.
Scott Snyder. Yeah. That's I don't know. We don't even ask. I was on a show yesterday with Mike Murphy, and we're like, I'm not asking for those guys to kiss my ass or even respond to me if I say, "Hey, I like your book," on Twitter. They don't have to respond to me. I don't care if they like the comment or whatever. I just don't want them to get mad at me for nothing. Oh, shut up, Nazi! I don't need. I mean, I'm just as happy to get no response as I am upset to get a response that's completely ridiculous over a little opinion.
We're not blowing up over some criticism, I mean, you're out there, you're doing something very public. People are going to criticize you from time to time. You need to develop a thick skin to these sorts of things, and either just ignore it, or at least hopefully you get mature enough to say, I'll at least consider this. Maybe the person who's criticizing me is right. Maybe there's some room for improvement there. That's certainly the mature thing to do. At the very least, just ignore it and don't throw a temper tantrum.
Oddity is my first book. I totally expect people to roast me over the writing. I really do. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I'm doing my best, and I've gotten some good feedback. But I totally expect it. People are going to say, "Oh, this could have been done better, or that could have been done," and that's okay with me. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to say, okay, yeah. Well, next time I'll be able to fix that. Next time, okay, I get that. I can understand how maybe the dialogue here was this or that or whatever the criticism is going to be. I'm perfectly happy to accept that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tilt is my first. I know I'm going to get criticism over it, and I mean that's perfectly fine because it is my first effort, and I want to improve. My live stream, which is on Tuesdays with Jeremy Lott, we did Isolt recently, who, gosh, I'm just terrible with names right now. The author of that, though, was watching the show. He's like, I want to improve. So what were some of the problems here? And you get a lot of that in Comicscape. People, for the most part, don't seem to take the criticism personally. They're like, yeah, I know I'm just starting out here. What do you have to say?
So while we're on it, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tilt?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, Tilt is it's kind of action drama, and the it centers around the character. If you go scroll down a little bit so we can see the full standard cover. The character in the middle there, her name is Jennifer Poehler. Her dad Larry is murdered by mobsters, and the mobsters are then out to get her. In the afterlife, her dad begs a spirit there to protect her, and the spirit agrees and gives her the power to make the kings, queens, and jacks in a deck of cards come alive. And basically that's what you've got there in the she's holding up a pair of aces. I'll give you the kind of the story to this, why they're the aces and how they are related to the SUV blowing up in the background there. But from left to right, that's the Queen of Hearts, King of Hearts, and Jack of Hearts there. At any rate, but the but here is that there is a price for this power, and that is she must use it to eliminate the mobsters who murdered her father. And her character arc is going to be a very emotional one. She's going to go from, there's no way I can do this, the first time she pees in her pants, throws up, to over time, she will actually start to get off on the adrenaline rush associated with it. And both of them will have consequences, because her weaknesses are that she's a little impulsive and she's a little bit reckless. And that's kind of, because it's an emotional character arc, that's why I took the title Tilt. If you play poker at all seriously, you hear the term tilt, and what it means is it's a mental state in poker in which your emotions dictate your play instead of your logic and reason. It usually happens when you're way ahead in a hand, someone's got like a 3% chance to beat you, and they catch the perfect card, and you see a big pot that should have been yours going to this this mook.
Yeah.
And since that's kind of what she's dealing with here, that sort of emotional swings, I thought Tilt was a nice succinct name, and it really fit the story. This here is the variant cover, just real quick, the standard cover was drawn by Jordi Armengol. He did a wonderful job. Jeff Craven did the variant cover here, also did a wonderful job. As comic book creators, you know that sometimes it's easy to come up with ideas. Sometimes it's a royal pain in the ass. The variant cover was that for me. I was struggling to come up with an idea for it. And finally, one day it hit me. It's like, Dave, this is a comic book dealing with playing cards. Have a house of cards with the various characters here. And, it's like, and in retrospect, it seemed obvious, but, I'm one of those people who it sometimes takes a while before the obvious finally smacks me in the face. But at the top there, you have Jennifer Poehler. In the middle level is the Jack of Hearts, who plays a pretty key role in the comic book. The one on the right is Jack Tessio, is one of the mob hitmen. We gave him the card number 7 because he's kind of in a 007 pose there. And then on the bottom are it's going to be the Queen of Clubs, Queen of Diamonds, and Queen of Spades. You'll notice in some of the art, the Queen of Hearts, we gave her kind of a traditional royal kind of garb, something you would expect a queen to be wearing. The other 3, we decided, no, let's base them on actual superhero costumes so that we get some of that very, very crucial non-approved body type. I mean, vital, essential.
Yeah.
Such a cool idea. Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like the premise. It's really original.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
This is the pinup done by my colorist Lenore King. You know her on Twitter is @Lost.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When she gave me this idea, I was just like, immediately I said, run with it. She basically said, it'll say, she'll be holding the cards, it'll say pick a card, any card, and it'll be kind of a horror motif. And so that's why the kings and queens in the background, they're kind of like ghosts or phantoms in the background. And I like it because, it's action drama, it's not a horror book, and the pinup goes in a different genre direction, I guess. So that's why I really like the pinup here.
That's pretty cool.
This here is one of the other perks you can buy is an actual deck of cards, 54 card deck, poker deck. And this is what will be on the back of the cards. This was drawn by my main artist, the inside artist, Marcos Lima, colored by Lenore King. I love the shine on the dress there. It actually looks like it's satin, which is what it's supposed to be. And the lettering, the graphics there were done by a young woman by the name of Emma Longfellow. This is pretty much what the image is going to look like if you decide to get the deck of cards. Other than the bottom sentence there, we're probably going to have to restructure that a little bit, because when Lenore shrunk it down to a typical, your standard card size, which is 2.5 by 3.5 inches.
It's hard to read.
It got blurry, so we're gonna have to blow it up a little bit. We might have to make it 2 lines with some ellipsis dots or something like that. But
you might even have to make a different font that might be easier to read.
You know, we went with that font because I threw it out on my I threw out 2 versions of the fonts to my the people who signed up, and this was the most popular one. Now, you may be right. We may just have to change fonts so that it's readable at that size, but we'll see. Don't have to decide just yet. We'll see what we can do with it. But the rest of the image, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, that's cool. We got more stuff. Here we go. More stuff. Some of the internal stuff.
Yeah, this is the first page, explains what Tilt is. The guy in the middle is the head mobster, Johnny Ricca. On the left is Jack Tessio. On the right is his younger brother, Mark Tessio. This is the scene right before they shoot Larry. The reason they shoot him is because Larry's a professional poker player, very successful at it, but loves to play with mobsters for the thrill. But he's been playing with them, and they're easy marks when they're good mobsters, bad card players. But over time, the more he plays with them, the more he starts to hear little things. And eventually the conscience gets the best of him. He starts informing to the police, and someone basically squeals on him. And that's basically, this book is setting, it's going to be 3 issues. This book is 32 pages. Let your viewers know that as of right now, 16 pages are completed, inked, colored, lettered. I plan on having this thing ready to go to the printer pretty much right after the campaign ends. So I put the date up as August for getting it. I think July is more reasonable, assuming that we're still not in lockdown by then. Yeah. But at any rate, and so the first issue is getting Jennifer kind of prepped and into actually killing mobsters. The second issue is going to be basically a slaughter of most of the mobsters, although there will be a consequence for Jennifer. And the final issue will be her trying to figure out exactly who squealed to the mobsters that her dad was an informant, and is acting revenge on them. If you want to scroll up, I'll just explain the page above that. This is basically the one page in the spirit realm where the dad is begging the spirit to send protection for the daughter. The spirit's saying, I will do it, but for a price. And Larry, is very reluctant, but finally gives in and agrees. When I sent this over to Lenore to be colored, I mean, my thinking was, okay, it's the spirit realm. It's heaven, right? White, bright, shiny, a little bit of gold. She looked at the script and thought, no, this is a far more foreboding spirit realm, because you're basically giving someone the power to go out and kill people, kill mobs. Yeah. But still. And so she colored it this kind of blue indigo. And the spirit, most of his costume was that blood red, although a little bit of it was gold. And I looked at this and I was like, yeah, this works way better than what I'd imagined. And I said, get rid of the gold, go with blood red on all of it. And so it just, it's one of those things that I can be kind of anal and controlling. I put in a lot of detail when I write the script, because I can see the panels pretty clearly in my head. But the one thing I like about the process is that you have to give up a lot of that and let the artist take over. And the best thing about it is most of the time, even if you still end up going with the original vision, at least some details are going to be different, and you're going to actually like those better than your original vision.
Yeah. When I do it, Sweens owns the character. But for the most part, when I write stuff, I do the script, and then it's like, all right, as long as the story's there, I turn it into the artist, and if he likes what he sees, he does it. And if he says, well, what about if I change this around or I change that? I'm like, yeah, that's probably, since he's the visual guy and has all that experience. Most of the time, I'm going to say, yeah, that's probably better. That sounds good. So
yeah,
I always.
By the way, I love your art. It's really,
thank you very much.
Really outstanding.
Appreciate that. Yeah, Dave and I, we have like kind of a backwards system of doing our stuff, but we make it work, and we're pretty much on the same page all the time. But I'm not going to sit there and talk about my book. We're here to talk about yours. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, the very last image down there is if you scroll back down real quick, this is the first time all the queens show up. This is right after Jennifer's pretty much agreed to do it, and she's talking with the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts say that we're going to need Rachel. Was it Argine, Rachel, and Palace, which are the actual names of the Queen of Clubs, Diamonds, and Spades. The Queen of Hearts, her name is actually Judy, and those are the actual names of the queens that they believe the cards were, the images in the cards were modeled on. So yeah, she's just basically bringing those three forth, and as you can see here, they've got more superhero type costumes. They're going to use the queens to try to get information on the mobsters, figure out when they're most vulnerable to attack. And she's the Queen of Hearts is basically saying, "Okay, welcome, ladies. Time for some reconnaissance." And Jennifer looks at him and goes, "You're not going out dressed like that, are you?" So yeah. And I can just real quick talk about some of the perks if you'd like as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it goes from very basic perks, like you can just get a PDF for $4. The top perks so far seems to be the most popular, which is the 2 comic books, one with the standard cover, one with the variant cover. You also get the PDF. And then the add-ons are, of course, the pinup and the deck of cards. The higher you go in the perks, the higher the price of the perks, like the 2 comics and the PDF is $20, but the prices of the add-ons go down the more you go up. You can just get 1 comic, either the standard cover or the variant. And then the higher perks, you actually get yourself drawn into the comic book in issue 2. And I've got a couple of them, and you basically get to be some kind of thug or mobster in it, and you get to suffer a gruesome death. Cool. So the first 2 are like there's 2 of them, $200. You will be guarding the country home of Johnny Ricca, and you will appear on 1 page, and you'll either get stabbed in the back or slashed in the throat. The first purchaser gets to choose. Second one is you are Johnny Ricca's bodyguard. You'll be drawn on at least 2 pages. You will get to interact with some of the characters. You'll actually get to kill a few characters before you get a dagger thrown into your eye. Nice. And then the last one, which has already been claimed, and I'll tell you in a second who claimed it, is actually the friend of the hitman, CD friend of the hitman, Jack Tessio, who's also a crack shot. He's going to he'll appear on at least 3 pages. You'll get to interact with some of the characters. You'll get to kill a few of them. There will be a little surprise. And this person will have the pleasure of having their head chopped off from the nose up.
Nice.
And it was actually my brother who purchased this one, which was not a surprise. And let me tell you, I'm going to have so much fun chopping his head off. It's like a dream come true. But I actually called him this afternoon and I said, I want to use that in an email, my first email to update people. Do you mind? Because, I don't reveal the identities of my customers. I don't think any CGer does, but I got his permission. And so I can reveal that now.
Yeah, that's a golden rule within online communities. Never dox anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's, dude, there's been times where it was people's, aliases, and if you put that out there, they freak out about it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tread carefully with it, with all that. So.
Yeah. All right. So we're at let's see, $3,000 goal. You're at 1,077. You're at 35%. 23 days left. We can make this happen.
Yeah.
I'll
You should
probably
be able
end
to
up extending the campaign too. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm, I was thinking about around a $4,000 or $5,000 goal, but when this coronavirus stuff came out, I'm like, I've got to lower that because I really do want to get this first issue out, and I think 3,000 is doable. But it's just given the times we're in, it's not it's going to be a little tougher, and you just I'm just going to keep working it.
And right now, you're in this, like, you're heading to like the middle of your campaign. Your first 48 hours kind of determines where your book will go.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, like, there's all sorts of crazy things that can happen. Like, Dave and I, we went through stretches where it was like a month where we didn't make money, and then someone says something online or makes a video about you, or does some negative things on you, and all of a sudden your book spikes up $1,000, like, out of nowhere. It's hard to tell, but usually your first 48 and then your last 48 hours is where you make a bulk of your money.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I made a lot the first 2 days.
Yeah.
I've had at least one backer every day. This, however, looks to be the first day I will not actually get a backer. And look, I was warned ahead of time. It's going to be very, you're going to have long periods of dormancy, and then you will, you'll get one here and there, and then you'll see a spike at the end, and and I've always approached this. I mean, I've approached this as a game of inches, which is what it is. It was the same thing trying to get signups. I got 5 or 6 signups the first day when I had my signup page, and then it was a matter of trying to get 1 or 2 more a day. And by the time I was done, I had like around, I think, 75. But it's the same here. I mean, you're just trying to grind out a few more inches each day, and that's really all you can do.
It's all about getting eyes on the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, it's hard. Like, you can have the biggest support behind you and stuff like that, but until you get the eyes on it, like, that's what it's all about. And I'm confident that you can hit your goal and everything. And then after this book, like, if you fulfill and you do all that and you come through, like, that gives a lot of the buyers confidence in you. And if you like the product and everything, then now you've got those buyers, then you've got those backers, and then your next book, who knows what it can do next. And you just keep building it up and building it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're confident. I'm not so confident, but it's that lack of confidence that drives me to keep trying to get on every single YouTube show and promote it on Twitter every single day. So,
and you get on every show you can get on, possibly. It doesn't matter how many views they get or anything. You just got to keep throwing it out there. Like, I was fortunate enough that I jumped in online where I was posting up art, all the time, and I did it for a year and a half before I launched.
Wow.
I got a decent amount of followers and started going on streams and stuff like that way before I launched. And then when we launched, my stomach was in knots. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, we can hit the launch button and we might not get any sales. Like, that goes through your head. And as it should, as it should with everyone that does these crowdfunding projects. Like, I mean, in all reality, it's like no one owes us anything. Like, no matter how much time and effort we put into it, no one really owes us anything. So when you do it, you kind of freak out. And that's reasonable. But
Mhm.
you can't let that stuff deter you. You know, if you're really passionate about it and you really want to do it, I mean, eventually it'll come through. But it's about marketing and getting your voice out there and producing a solid product. And you've got a good looking product, man. Like,
I appreciate that.
And it's an interesting, unique concept too.
yeah,
Thank
It's a really cool idea, and I think
It is. It's really
just
cool.
keep putting it out there. Tweet it every day.
I will.
One thing that I'm really bad at is hashtagging. You got to find related hashtags or the right kind of thing that somebody will get. It'll get somebody's interest.
Okay.
When you put it out, because I'm really bad at it. And there's a I know.
I guess I
one
can
of the-
put out hashtag coronavirus sooner or later, you know.
Well, I mean, you put stuff like hashtag, World of Poker or World Poker Championship, anything that kind of relates to the topic.
Lots of non-approved body type. Hashtag Joe Biden, you know.
Yeah, there you go. You put that kind of stuff on there, and people, if the subject matter, people will find it and they'll be like, oh, they're big into playing cards or whatever, or any kind of stuff. Hashtag action. Hashtag whatever you can think of. And like I said, I'm bad at it. Hashtag Comicsgate a lot, even. Hashtag all that kind of stuff. Make sure you hashtag everything, and depending on what you can fit, and that's gonna get some more eyes on it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, there's certainly plenty of hashtags related to poker players that I could use. That's a great idea. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, and we also got Ryan Haack here.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's get on to
Also got a
Ryan. I
book.
want to hear about his book.
All right. So let me pull up his book.
Yes.
All right. I know he's been sitting here just talking our ears off.
Trying to contribute a little bit.
All right. Let's see. So there we go. Unspeakable. And I read the first couple of pages.
Right, of the first volume.
Of the first volume, yes.
Yep.
That you sent me. It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, definitely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, for sure. So the Unspeakable Text is a horror comic / suspense comics / concept comics story anthology, pretty much. And it basically, the one unique factor about the anthology is that all the stories are written by me. So last time we had 11 comic book stories in the first volume. It was 75 pages. And this time we have 8 comic book stories, 5 short stories, and a 20-page section of a graphic novel, culminating in a 90-page volume 2. So the Unspeakable Text is basically all these horror / suspense stories are tied together with this concept that an evil book, a sentient book, is collecting stories, is taking control of people and basically having them write down stories that happen in real life, events that happen in real life, and basically store it in the book so no one can ever know about them again. And these events are usually scary stories. They're the stories that make up the Unspeakable Text itself. So in some of these stories, the book appears. So as you see in that page right there, this is the first story in the second volume where the book travels to America. All these stories are based in North America in this volume. But there are also self-contained stories that have nothing to do with the text at all. So it's a mishmash of really just fun stories. Some stories are 3 pages, some stories are 11 pages. And in the case of the graphic novel, when it's published in the subsequent volumes completely, it will be amount to 60 pages. So the stories are fun, and it's not like bloody, gory horror or anything. It's just horror and suspense that makes you think, kind of like the Twilight Zone, for example. So, yeah.
We lose you?
I don't know. I'm here. Do you hear me?
Gotcha. Yeah, we got you.
Tell us like who are some of the main characters? Tell us a little bit about them and what.
Yeah. So every story has its own character. So none of the characters kind of meet each other or anything of that nature. Usually, so it's sort of like the Twilight Zone in the sense that there's a problem, and by the end of the story, the character learns a lesson. It could be a good one. It can be a bad one. You can end up liking the character more, or probably in most cases not liking them very much. So, for example, I'll just give you an idea of a character with this page right here that we're looking at. So this is a story where it's a math. We follow the story of a math teacher. He's a fourth grade math teacher, and his students are having a difficulty trying to understand a math problem. And the math problem actually doesn't make sense. It's like a misprint. There's an issue with it. It's a word problem. And for some reason, the teacher finds, starts to connect with this story. He feels bad for the characters within the story, the word problem. And so he writes in himself inside the word problem. And basically because of that, he gets involved in their world and he tries to fix their world. He tries to fix the fact that, the problem isn't right and it doesn't make sense and the rules of the world don't make sense in the word problem. And basically he ends up getting in a lot more trouble than he expected. And he ruins their lives, essentially. And so, so in that case, you might end up not liking him. There's so many stories where, the short stories we follow a lot of interesting characters, a lot of interesting problems. And so this is our graphic novel. It's called The Akashic Records, where we follow business people who have accumulated a lot of karma, and karma beings actually attempt to murder them and kill them. And so they have to use these weapons that you see to fend themselves, to save themselves, to fend off against these karma beings that so desperately want to kill them. And, you can like the character or you can't. I wanted to have a character that was a quote unquote rich white male, because I wanted people to sympathize with him because, here's this guy who, our society these days hate, this guy has so much power and privilege, but what would he look like if he was being chased by killer karma demons, right? Like what in that situation, would you sympathize for him? Because he's literally brought to his knees. So we got all kinds of characters in this story, all kinds of people of different statuses, of different, and we just are here to just have a lot of fun, to tell.
I think we lost him there.
Yeah, we lost you again.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
That was really getting interesting.
Don't get
Sorry.
You
Do you
still
hear
there?
me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I don't know why that is. I apologize that's happening there.
You were talking about the guy being brought to his knees and having some sympathy for him, and that's kind of where you cut out.
Yeah, it's just like I was saying, the characters.
There is. I don't believe in spirits really, but it's swear to God there must be one running around saying we are not going to let him tell us more about this story.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should take off my mic. I'm going to try to take off my mic. Maybe that might work better.
All right. Are you there?
Does it work better?
Try it again, Ryan.
Does this work a little better?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So essentially that's just the idea, is having a lot of different characters, a lot of interesting characters to look at and see their lives and see them being put through these strange events and stories and, hopefully learn something out of it. But again, we are trying to go with that Twilight Zone theme where, you learn something at the end. You learned a little something about the character or a little something about life, a life lesson. The character learns a life lesson. So, it's kind of like, they're just fun little stories. And I have a blast collaborating with artists. We have 14 artists on this volume, 14 incredibly talented artists on these stories. And it's just and included with the other ones we have about, so like if you were to get the volume 1 and volume 2, there would be about 22 artists who all contributed and collaborated. And these were people who I just asked and said, hey, here's a 3-page story. would you like to draw it? And thankfully they did. So it's just been a total blast.
Now, is it all going to be black and white, or are you just waiting for the colorist to finish? Or
so it is pretty much the main theme of the story, and the anthology is black and white. There are two. The graphic novel does have color elements, as you saw. The weapons have a color, and then the demons are the spirits, karma spirits have a color as well. And so that's the only story that has color in the book, and it's kind of important. It's kind of a big deal, you know, for us to have a graphic novel in this series, which is full of short stories. So we wanted to kind of give it a more deluxe feel.
All right, let's go over the perks here and see what you got.
Yeah. That is just the, you know, bread and butter collection of both of them. If you missed out on the first one, that's how many stories? 22 stories you'll be getting. 150 pages of content about with that. So, you know, I think it's a good value.
And Ryan, you're 12 years old, right?
21.
Oh.
Yeah, this is all very impressive, dude.
Thank you, man.
Put this all together, and you know, you're working towards it, and you know, you've had some success, so it's very awesome, and you know, you're going to be just fine with all this.
Yeah, you know, my thing is I had it first on Kickstarter, right? And I wanted to bring it to Indiegogo because of the fact that I think it's just there should be more anthologies on Indiegogo. I think or just in general on crowdfunding. I think it's a really easy way for a writer who wants to write a lot of stories and who has a lot of ideas to culminate a lot of short stories and release them and in a really short amount of time. To give you an idea, I started writing stories for this in December, and we've already got 90 pages. You know, so that's just me going on ArtStation and Instagram and sharing my stories with people. And if they're interested, in a couple weekends, they finish the short 3-pager and we have a story, you know? And, you know, so I encourage people, you know, to do it, because anthologies I think there's so many rewards in, you know, working with artists who are just hungry to collaborate, you know?
I think for your next project, you should do an anthology of high school love triangles. Just see how it goes. You know?
You know, triangle is the perfect shape.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. We got the digital duo. I assume that's both books digitally.
Exactly. You name it.
Explanatory.
And then Thrill Seeker is just the number 2 digital. You know, I think international people will like that. You know, I with my last book, I had an international person say, you know, you just have to have a digital copy, and it's a sacrifice I'll make. I know I might lose out on some money, but at the same time, I would rather have.
It's kind of a double-edged sword with the digital. Like, we did it, and I'm thankful we did it, because we can send our book off to places all over the world, and they don't have to worry about this ridiculous shipping or anything like that, and they get the book. Like, they get our story, they get our art and all that, and I think that's huge. Also, when you start getting more sales like that, the digital, you know, actually will start going towards, you know,
it offsets shipping a little bit.
Yeah.
On the physical books.
Yeah, that's what I realized with my last one was like, well, okay, so I have 20 people who did digital. That's, you know, I have 20 plus books that I can just have for myself now, because I think I looked at the backer total instead of the, you know, whatever it was. So it's cool. It's cool. It's cool to have that, you know. There are benefits. There's benefits and negatives to it. So
yeah. Let's see. Screw Loose 2, you got a physical copy and a digital.
Yep. Absolutely. And then the last one is just my, you know, my catalog of stories. I figured I'd put it all together and see who would be interested. And that's a fun one. You know, I think once you have 2 books in a series or 3, it becomes easier to have a campaign, right? Because it's easier to make perks for it. Because, you know, with bric-a-brac and stuff, I had to create bookmarks or all this extra junk that it's cool to have, but it's also not. I don't know. It doesn't seem. It's kind of more of a pain than just being able to just ship the book to someone and that's it. I like that idea of just giving them what they really want instead of extra stuff.
Yeah. Now, I'm not the expert at this. What I would do is put your catalog as your premier perk.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just because it's got the bric-a-brac book.
Right.
And that's a full book. And I think that for whatever reason, I mean, I like the idea of anthologies, but for whatever reason, it doesn't catch many people. It doesn't catch people the same way as a full book.
Right.
So I would suggest you put the catalog as your premiere. It's about the right price for something like that. Plus, they're getting the full book as well as the anthologies.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely should do that. Yeah. No, you're definitely right. Yeah.
I want to talk to you about because I wanted to back bric-a-brac and I didn't get a chance.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
I want to talk to you offline about getting a copy.
For sure.
It's worth it. Jeremy and I reviewed it a few weeks back, and it's a good book.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, the art is wonderful, and your color scheme was marvelous. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I remember I had you on the show when you were pushing bric-a-brac, and I love the art style. It's got like a fun cartoony type of art style, and it seemed like a really cool story.
Yeah. I'm just trying to be a better writer, trying to do better. I mean, yeah, we're actually we're doing at the end of this year, we're gonna be finishing the story, and we're gonna put all of the pages from number 1 and adding 50 pages of the story, and compiling it into a graphic novel, and then adding a couple extra backups too. So you'll get some more information on some of the extra characters in the graphic novel that'll be releasing, or that'll be on Indiegogo, during the summer. So I'm super excited about that, to kind of finish the entire story. So
cool. All right. Yeah, I almost doxed myself.
Whoops.
I hit the wrong thing, and I think my credit card number was going to come up.
Oh God!
Yikes!
That's not a good thing.
We'll pull it back up here in a second. There we go.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, yeah. All right, we got it back up. Yeah. I was going to try to click it to bring it down, but all right. We got the catalog's $50, and again, that comes with the bric-a-brac.
Yep, absolutely.
That's the last one on that one. All right. No, that's super cool.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it simple with the rewards this time, just to see how it goes.
Yeah, and like I said, I read the first couple of pages of Volume 1 that you sent me, and it's really good. I really like it. Yeah. I like the whole idea of the book tying everything together, tying all the stories together.
Yeah. There's a lot of anthologies around. I would say the thing that really inspired me to kind of create this story is the Tomb of Dracula, though. The Gene Colan. That's the kind of tone we're going for. It's not necessarily about monsters and stuff like that, but just that kind of classic comic book tone. I love that the Gene Colan stuff is some of my favorites, and I love how Marvel was just releasing it in those collections they have. So I was able to get those. So.
Cool. Yeah, I remember picking up some of those old when I was a kid, some of the old Marvel kind of horror anthology type stuff.
Yeah. Tomb of Dracula is just super cool. I would say that was a huge inspiration. And I think one of the cool things about the anthology, and one of the things I like, is just that it's all written by one person. I think when it's written by multiple people, and there's there's a lack of thread. That's not to say that it's bad, but it's just I think when there's one person connecting it all together, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of fun with it, and I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah. Alrighty, so we're going on almost an hour and a half here. We've got for everybody watching later on, we've got both books in the description. We've also got Oddity in the description. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was a good talk. Got a couple of really good books out here. Interesting concepts.
Yeah, it's fun.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So let's see. I think that's it for me for this week as far as shows. Oddity is going to be done in 3 weeks. Make sure you're checking that out. Make sure you're checking out these other books. And stay safe. Stay in your house. Drink some beers. And try to, whatever your comic shop's doing, try to help them out as much as you can. Buying good stuff. All right, everybody, y'all have a good night. Thanks to everybody in the chat who showed up, and we'll talk to you. We'll see you on Twitter.
All right, take
Later,
care, guys.
Thanks very much.
All right.